position on the trails and greenways. Okay, Barbara, you can raise your right hand and read the oath.
I, Barbara Cameron, do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the United States, the state of Florida, and the town of Malabar, that I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state, and that I will fairly perform duties on the Trails and Greenway Committee on which I'm about to enter. So help me God. I thought you were going to swear at.
Okay, thank you.
Oh.
I'll give you a copy tomorrow.
Pardon?
I said I'll give you a copy tomorrow.
Oh, like a picture?
Thank you.
My picture on to take some. Sometimes I got y'all looking other places. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Any comments? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, I actually do have some, let me see, oh, we're not in public comments yet, excuse me. Okay, the attorney's report.
I don't have anything specifically to report on tonight.
Okay. And I don't see a sheriff's officer here. So we'll move to board and committee reports. Trails and Greenways Committee. Come on, Drew.
Good evening, members of council. I'll make the brief announcement here as far as Trails and Greenways update goes. Handed out something that's going around the dais right now. It's basically just a list, but before I get into that list, and it's a good thing, I have another good thing for everybody in here. And I don't even think the individual knows about this yet, but the Space Coast TPO, which is the Transportation Planning Organization, has made its selection for this year's basically for this year's Lifetime Achievement Award. And it's going to Mr. Bob Wilbur of Malabar, Florida. So, I'm not prepared to kind of go into it officially, not to steal the thunder from the TPO, but Bob's certainly a tremendously deserving individual for that, and we're real pleased to hear that news. So I thought you should know it as soon as basically we're hearing it. So big deal there. What you have in front of you is basically a list of things that we would like to propose to the TPO. And it's real easy to go over it, and I'm not even going to show you basically anything on the wall. If you can think of paved trails like the Al Tuttle Trail, everybody have that in their mind, basically an ADA with paved trail. This would be the idea that all these trails that would be proposed for consideration by the TPO, which is kind of, they're gradually becoming our essentially focus area for the county. When we're talking about new trails, new ideas, especially when they're connecting to another spot, the TPO is increasingly becoming kind of the control point, both for grants and for even acknowledgement that it's even in the queue of future trails. So what we're talking about here is really 4 trails, and if you think of it going kind of backwards as you read a book, we're going from right to left or from east to west, however you want to look at it. But we're basically talking about 4 different trail connections that would essentially connect Malabar to City of Palm Bay. So we would need their cooperation and agreement. There's no money involved now. We're really just kind of throwing out the idea to see if we can even land this on some lists. The first of these trails, if you envision this, and those of you, I think the whole council is familiar with the Al Tuttle Trail, as you head up Marie Street going north from the trailhead on Marie Street, you basically kind of almost an abrupt left turn, and you're going west at that point. That's really the end of Malabar, or very close to the end of Malabar, really near the end of Marie Street. If you could envision a trail crossing, most likely crossing that canal, it's known as the border canal, paralleling along the railroad tracks, but on city of Palm Bay property, because of that drainage ditch, all the way to Good Park, where the boat ramp is. Number one connector, because you only really would have to cross Port Malabar Road near railroad tracks, which is pretty open area, and it would basically not, we don't think that would be a big problem for a crossing to go in there. And again, this is the city of Palm Bay. The reason that we're looking at this is Palm Bay City does not yet have a trails organization to rally or champion a lot of these things. So we by default are the ones doing it. And this is kind of, you earn some points by being a multi-town, multi-city concept. So this is the first thing, again, we're sort of stepping out literally off of our trail in Malabar, going across that canal, and we'd be basically on what's really City of Palm Bay property if they were to approve this, a trail going all the way up to there. So again, a major connector on the, essentially the east side of our trail system, that's the first one. The second one is sort of in the middle, if you want to think of it that way, and again, it's almost a vertical north-south scenario. If you consider North Quarry Road, the pavement stops, you have essentially a green parking area, and then you have the fence for the trailhead. Essentially what would happen would be a connection to the pavement of, again, an ADA type of paved macadam type of trail. Would parallel the green trail, which currently goes past the CTS, the Cameron Trail Shelter, and essentially not be on it or interrupt it, but essentially kind of parallel that diagonal northwest turn going up to the CTS, or have at least a tangent off to the CTS. When we built the CTS, we built it to be ADA specified. If we ever did have a proper ramp up to it, and we could do the grade, we considered that when we designed it, or when Brian designed it, I should say, and NLE. But at this point, that would be the next thing. You would go past the CTS and essentially connect from within Cameron to the point where Cameron is touching the Altala. So it therefore would not interfere, because we know that the Ills folks do not really love seeing a lot of pavement through their Ills property. This would essentially connect Stillwater Preserve, Country Cove, to basically the Altala Trail system, which would be pretty major for bicycling. And a lot of folks feel a lot better going down some kind of improved trail than they do going down a paper sandy trail type of thing. So again, that's number two, diagonal. Third trail we're talking about, our third trail connector, is kind of an unusual one, very small. You really have to use your imagination on this. For those of you that know where Brook Hollow is, the Brook Hollow's is the only development, I believe, in the town of Malabar that has sidewalks. And the sidewalk that ends at the house, the number one lot, right by the bridge, basically ends abruptly in the yard. The concept would be an ADA trail connecting to that sidewalk, going across the bridge, which has a sidewalk area designated, stopping at the existing trail crossing, crossing the street, picking up Macadam again, paralleling Briar Creek around the bend, just as you get out of Malabar. You're on the Malabar-Palm Bay border now, and a tangent that would connect from the sidewalk of Glenbrook that stops right at the border with Malabar, and again going to the direct turn of the Al Tunnel behind Glenbrook. So you would then provide the Glenbrook citizens in Palm Bay a paved circular trail around their buildings that they could see the whole time, which from talking to people, that would be a huge value to them. So again, it would connect one of your developments with sidewalks to an Altala trail. Your property values in that development would be projected to increase, hence property tax revenue would benefit from that. But again, it's a good thing. It would more enhance the trail concept. So again, we've got three things going so far. We've connected essentially at this point some different communities, including to the border of the north. We've really connected Port Malabar. Additionally, we've connected Stillwater and really south Malabar for that matter. The Country Cove would have a tangent that way. There's really one left, and this one's probably the most obvious, and it's a little bit west of where we usually play when we're outside on the trails, but it's the power line going from Malabar Road due north. Those of you that are familiar with the Harris office building that's up on the north side of Port Malabar, there's essentially a power line that goes up that way. There's a trail underneath that already that's ADA. This is really a connection to that. So we're talking crossing the Tillman Canal. So the thought would be is you would have not going through existing woods, but basically FPL trail, which we found that FPL seems to like having these grants going because then they can access and service the roads better, there's less vandalism. We're also theorizing that it could be sold to sell the bridge over the Tillman, that the thought being that there's less chance of kids trying to cross the bridge where they shouldn't, or cross the Tillman Canal. Because if there's a way, there's an attempt. But if this was just an open bridge that allowed pedestrians and bicyclists, you would then connect really south of Port Malabar all the way up to the, essentially the Harris building up there. These are the 4 trails we would like to propose. What I'm looking for tonight is very simply is virtually a nod. There's no commitment. But it'd be inappropriate for us to represent that we're interested in that without you all knowing about it. So our committee felt that you should be brought up to speed on that. So I don't know how to approach it, you as chairman.
Yeah, Dick, you have some
I
comments?
think, as I'm hearing him, I think it would be proper to make a motion that we concur with the ideas presented here that would be in the best interest of our Malabar Trails and Greenways.
Okay. All right. Okay, we have a motion second, any more discussion?
I think it's a good idea to continue along the great work that you've done in the beginning. You know, setting us up to a green, this is just continuing that along.
We felt it's certainly in theme with being a trail town, and connecting other places will help get us those connections and support commercially to the explorers. And I'll basically just close tonight's update with, just want to welcome Barbara Cameron to our Trails and Greenways Committee. And I'm excited to say we have a full committee, so hold your calls. We have no more openings.
Has that ever happened before?
Well, it's been a while, so this is a good thing. So I appreciate the council's support, ongoing support. We look forward to doing a lot more stuff.
Okay, so we have to have the vote. Again, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you, folks.
Okay.
Thanks for, Drew, thanks for all you do.
Okay, we see Parks Rec. P&Z?
Oh, we got Park.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Eric.
didn't see you there.
I'm
Sorry.
short, I know that, but come on. Little respect. I'm Eric Andrew with the Parks and Rec Board. Based on our last meeting, we had a couple items, mainly maintenance items that we wanted to bring in front of the board here. So for the next year or so, we can start thinking about what we're going to do about it. The first item, if you take a look here, this is the main bridge in the community park that goes over the lake. We're starting to get some wood rot on the top boards, and if you scoot down a little bit on that, you'll see also that the ramp there is also starting to rot away, so I think we need to think about maintaining that a little bit better. My concern is if you start taking the top boards off, how's the bottom boards looking underneath there? So don't want anybody getting splinters or the board falling off on and things like that. So then the second item is the gazebo. The roof's been repaired, and you can see that the top picture there, there's some shingles missing. And what's happening now is it's starting to leak, and you see the boards below. They're starting to drip in and they're starting to warp. And so that's pulling down the roof more. So I think either we need to think about re-roofing it with asphalt shingles or maybe with a metal roof to bring it up so it looks a little bit nicer and such. So when people sit underneath it, it'll get dripped on. Since it's a roof, we might as well order it. Those are the two main items. Third one is we planted some trees this weekend by the Huggins Park. And we had two little helpers with us. They were second graders. Their brother was playing soccer. And they got to name the trees. The top tree is Bob, and the bottom one is Luke. So if anybody goes there, we have two new participants. So, but that's the main thing. Just over the next year, we can start thinking about that. What we want to do to maintain those pieces of property.
I saw that picture of the bridge, and I wish I'd thought about what I've been thinking about the last 2 or 3 minutes earlier. At one time, the ramp coming off the bridge was a two-sided ramp, of which one of them was a cliff. Now, wasn't that one in your picture there? Has that all been changed? Tom, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we rebuilt that bridge in 2009, or 8.
I'm that out of date. Okay, that's fine. I don't mind, because I remember we used to have to replace a board now and again. But is the bridge structurally sound?
I think it is, yes.
Yeah, it
The
needs
pilot
to be
will be
reflected.
fantastic.
Okay. The other thing I would think about, and you mentioned the gazebos, at one time, and this goes back a long time ago, there were charcoal grills, permanent fixtures at the gazebos. They kind of disappeared many years ago, but I wonder, would it be a good thing to have those grills there now?
I'll put it on the
Wouldn't
list.
they be a lot
Look at it.
safer than people bringing in their own portable grills and putting them in the back of their car?
It's a good idea, we can look at it as a board.
What exactly are you asking for now, as far as the ramp goes? You need us to,
I think we need to start looking at it. It's still usable now, but I think over the next year, we might want to think about replacing the boards on it and then replacing the rails up top and taking a look at structurally how it is underneath.
okay. All right,
So I think that would budget.
right,
Okay.
that could go in the budget?
This would exceed the maintenance budget we've already got.
We need to start, probably, if we did it for the budget of last year, so
When budget time comes in,
we'll add it to it.
That's,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
something.
But now the roof of the gazebo that needs to be, repaired or replaced. Should we wait for budget to do that? Because that's, as time goes by, it's just gonna get worse.
they have
I'm
a
pursuing some contacts for
Let's get some
some
estimates.
materials, some
See about getting it fixed
some
right away.
materials and or labor. I'm pursuing that as we speak.
Well, we can help with the labor, let us know, so. We don't have a full board yet, but we're close. We're not that far. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, P&Z.
Your turn now.
Wayne Abear, 2530 Rocky Point Road. I'm the chairman of the P&Z Planning and Zoning Board. Here tonight, a year plus ago, after we wrestled with it for a long time, P&Z submitted a revised sign ordinance. It came in front of council, you all reviewed it. The attorney really reviewed it. And it came back to us with 10 more pages than we had when we submitted. So, the first edition, the first update, wrestled with things like animated signs, LED signs. You know, Route 1 Motorsports, I think, balled up this whole issue that we had an outdated sign ordinance. So, our attempt was to bring it up to date, which we did. When we got the marked up copy back, and, you know, with the attorney's comments, and his reason for that primarily was a Supreme Court decision, which I won't go into, but, so a lot of what he recommended we incorporate. However, we did leave several pages on the editing floor. To make it a little more, there were things in there that, you know, about December 15th or 25th to January 10th, you could have a sign, and you could put one in your window that was 8.5 by 11 or something. We just didn't see that as fitting, so, like I said, that ended up on the floor. Anyhow, you have, what Denise sent on to you was the 13-page cleaned up copy. We have a 21-page that shows what was slashed, and, you know, what was added. The one you got wasn't even colored, it was just all, okay, the 21 pages got all different colors. You know, green added by the attorney, you know, blue taken out, you know, whatever. It's a lot of fun. Anyhow. We did really beef up the definition section, and that was based primarily on the attorney's input. Let's see. All the glasses. And we axed out the license requirement, because, you know, we talked to staff, they don't enforce that anyway, so why have it in there? Anyhow, it was a collaborative effort of everybody on P&Z. You know, we all had our own ideas, nobody won. Everybody, collectively, we all got together and held hands and decided this is good, you know, that's not good. We added balloons, banner, and flag signs, you see them all over the place. It's something relatively new, so we decided that, you know, under certain situations, it's really fine. So, And it's a shame that the mayor's not here because he was active in some of this. And Liz really, she can't be here tonight. It's her wedding anniversary. So you're gonna have to settle for me. But, and if you really, if you really get into this and want to slug out the details, we would be, you can have a joint meeting with us, and we would be glad to go over in agonizing detail any item you want to talk about. So, any questions?
Maybe once we get to that agenda.
Yeah, we may ask you to come on
Yeah,
when we get to that.
That's what I was
Oh,
thinking.
okay.
Agenda.
I thought it came up a little early, but that's what I was here for.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to staff reports. Administrator?
You have in front of you April's schedule for public works. That'll go up on the website tomorrow, unless you have any comments or things you'd like to see revised. Update on the Fern Creek transfer to FDOT. Had a call with them today. They had some issues once they sent back comments on our design. Kind of had to continue the negotiations. As it stands right now, it looks like they're going to include the pipe underneath Malabar Road within the limits of their right-of-way, to no expense to the town. They are not going to construct the additional piping we need to get essentially from Malabar Road to the ditch on Quarry, but they're going to give us the utility permit so that we can construct it as we find funding. So, good progress on that. So, executed and closed on the cell tower easement, so that's completed. And some items from the TAC meeting. Most recent one, we passed a couple resolutions to support the inclusion of upgrades to the SR 528 overpass, excuse me, bridge or whatever.
Causeway?
Causeway, thank you.
Just wait till you get my age and that's all the time.
Yeah, it kind of came out of the FIT study that they were doing on the Flushing model. So basically, we're saying, hey, really look at these improvements and let us know what this is actually going to cost us. And then the other one was to adopt a regional resiliency action plan. It's kind of some goals and objectives and actual things that they want to do as far as planning actions for the next 5 years to include when we're looking at projects for infrastructure and how resilient they are when it comes to sea level rise or just the increased expansion of developments within the area. Kind of make sure that those improvements are going to be resilient and last us a long time and not just deal with today's problems. Then we had a presentation that was an update on the intelligent transportation system. This is the high-tech system they use on all lights around the county to manage traffic or go up to a light and they've got a camera that actually sees something sitting there and they can turn it green instead of just being on a cycle and through. So aside from that, that's all I got for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I was going to say that the 528 Causeway, the thinking is if they open it up a little bit, we'll have more flow.
Right.
And it might help. DeSantis stepped out big on the environment right off the bat, so maybe something happens this time.
All right, move on to the Public Works Director, Tom.
Good evening. Okay. All right, on the ditch cleaning so far, This month, we completed the north side of Fall Road from Corey to Winrose. On the south side of Bats Road, we did from Waring to Russell where the crossover is. On number 3, there's a correction. It's the north side of Bats Road, we did from Weber to Quarterman. We'll be doing from Quarterman to Corey this week. It's just a typo on my fault. On the east side of Weber Road, between Hats and Hall, basically that turned into a new ditch installment. That's what took so long. So, and we did both sides of Quarterman. Finished it today. We got 6 roads graded this month. The ditcher was out on South Marie Street, Kelly and McCain, both sides. We put the flail mower back on the slope mower. We were out on Kelly, McCain, Hats Road, and Corey, Hall, and Weber. All the parks have been maintenance every month, every week, excuse me. The right of way on Briar Creek was mowed. We started removing trees on Benjamin to clear a way for a new ditch. We took out the pine trees that were blocking the ditch on South Marie Street in the corner of Hall. And we've been cleaning up the public works yard, getting rid of the scrap pipe and scrap metal to make room for the building, so we'll be able to park. And we've done preventive maintenance on some of the vehicles, and hopefully they got the fan problem corrected on the new grade all. And that's about it. Any questions?
I saw the April schedule. This is great. I think this is exactly what thanks, Don.
Two things. One, I complimented him personally, so here. The ditching they've been doing on the east side on Weber Road, it is fantastic. Even some of the people whose homes they went in front of and commented very frequently on it. One other thing, though, we can't touch the ditches or anything along Malabar Road, even though if it's in poor condition, it reflects poorly on the town of Malabar. Communicate to that, I would like to see us communicate to FDOT that they maintain that as well as we're maintaining our roads. That they keep it clean, keep the ditches serviced, and make it a benefit to Malabar.
So, Matt, do you have any regular communication with them, doctors?
We do call them at a time, issues like that. So it's just the trees are from
Well, could we even just direct the town administrator or whoever would be appropriate to send a letter to FDOT expressing that concern? And so said in writing, and it doesn't mean you got to stay on the phone from all day every day. So they can put on a desk and see it regularly.
We get lots of positive input from people regarding the drainage. There's been a real difference in the last 2 months. It's obvious.
Okay.
And not to disparage anything from the past, but there's a market improvement. See a lot of the rest of this one.
Amazing what you can do.
Well, it's all your.
Amazing what you can do with the equipment.
And you have people to run it.
Okay, any other questions for Tom? Okay, let's go, Tom. All right, move on to Madam Clerk.
I believe we're going to be putting out a regular issue of the mailboat. We've kind of moved away from that and utilized the hometown news. We have a page a month, and that's been very well received by the people that we've heard from. But there have been some comments that they missed the mailboat. So we thought you guys would think about doing an article. We're also going to contact the boards and committees and ask them to do some articles, and we'll put together a mailboat maybe summertime.
Didn't we have some help on that with data management?
They have always printed ours. Free or next to free.
It needs to be given
All
credit.
right, so, again, all our elected officials need to be thinking about possible articles, content. Okay. So what would be the deadline? We need to, I mean, it's not, we don't have line.
Well, I'm gonna probably keep reminding you at each meeting, because even if I said the deadline was next month, I'd still be calling you and saying, I need that article.
Yeah.
So you would have set a.
Let's say
schedule.
mid-May,
Midday, okay,
okay?
all right. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, moving on to public comments. I've got several cards. Dawn Danielson, first card.
I just wanted to commend Public Works and Town Council for the Public Works list of things that are being accomplished. When these get published on the town website, the residents are going to be ecstatic. They're going to love it. On March 14th, I think it was March 14th, Todd Maury, our on-contract town plan, is that right, is he on contract? Made a pleasant and sensible presentation about the zoning overlays. This was a nice concept and might be of some value once we have some extra budget money available. In the meantime, town council needs to make finishing the town of Malabar draining plan their highest priority. I hope that council will not allocate funds for overlay zoning, which I see as an extra thing, until after the drainage plan is completely finished and usable for dealing with our historic drainage problems and working with FLDOT on SR 514 improvements. To that end, here's a unique and special stormwater drainage duct for each council member and the Public Works Department. District 1, right?
Good duck.
Two.
Rubber duck. So you can check the water flow.
We can get the ducks in a row.
District 4, Mr. Korn. District 5, Mr. White. And Tom left. Oh, no, he's still there. In the corner. Here's one for you, Tom, with a leader cap on. Thank you. We have a citizen that actually got 12 dozen ducks, 144 ducks. They're available for the citizens. Is there going to be a Spring Fest?
We'll see.
At this time, we're not planning on having one.
Pardon?
Might be a fall fest.
At this time, we're not planning on having a spring fest.
Okay, well, perhaps we could deliver them partly through MCA and personal delivery on volunteering, because as they're handed out, we could record the duck number and the receiver's name and address. And after a storm, citizens could put their duck in the drainage ditch or swale in front of their house, and then report to us the direction the duck flowed. Now, y'all might think that's really silly, but I've heard people say that the town says it flows north on Corey, south of Hall, and people that live there say, no, it flows north. So if we have all the intersections done, all the elevations for the intersections done, but we don't know how the water flows in that ditch between Hall and Corey, for example, Hall and Atz, for example, we could have a citizen throw their duck in the ditch and tell us. So then we would know not only what the elevation of the intersections were, but where water really is flowing, what direction it really is flowing in, rather than what everybody assumes it's flowing in. Which I think would be really, really helpful to our master drainage plan. And they could get together and have community fun events doing duck races. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so I'm going to, Georgia, a couple of weeks. They'll have an afternoon game called Chuck a Duck.
There you go.
See if they can hit the duck in the big tub of water from so far away.
All right, Richard Kovac, got 2 cards. We have 2 items you want to speak on?
Richard Kovac, live at Hall Road, Benton, Mel. Which item do you want me to address first?
Whichever one you'd like.
Okay, and I don't expect much from anybody other than the fact that I would like you to know that these things are going on to the degree that they're going on. The first one is we have a lot of unsafe traffic on the various arteries within Malabar. 3 times in the last year, while going southbound on Corey from Malabar towards Hall, traveling at the posted speed of 35, I've been passed by idiots. And in one case, that person blew through the stop sign at Hall, no surprise there. So we followed this person for a while, got the car type, got the tag number. This person then turned around and gave chase to us. Fortunately, we were able to put a little bit of traffic in between the 2 of us and get away. We certainly didn't want to go to our house and have these bozos following us. But in reporting it to the sheriff's office, we were told there's not a darn thing they can do, of course, unless they witness it. I just want you to know that a lot of citizens are getting more and more concerned about it. And it's becoming increasingly posted on the next door Malabar site. My wife and I look at this thing every day and we see this thing just continues to go on with no solution in sight. The sad part about it is, I don't think any of these people realize that driving is a privilege and that they're abusing the privilege. You know, the enforcement of this problem is a problem in itself, because to have the sheriff's office do an adequate amount of patrolling would not ever happen. It's, to catch somebody in the act is a needle in a haystack thing. Yes,
During the daytime, there are 2 deputies on duty in Malabar every day. I live on Weber Road. I know what you're talking about, and I can describe a couple of vehicles that, I guess you would say, go faster than I do. And I made it from South Miami back here in 3 hours last night. But I was on the turnpike, not on Weber Road. They can't do anything unless they have, legally, they can't do anything. Now, there is one lady in a red car who can get rather volatile. I've known to turn around.
Is it a red Honda Pilot?
It's an SUV, I don't know.
Yeah.
It could be a Pilot. We used to have a silver Pilot, so I should have recognized that, but didn't. But the fact is, there are people out there, but it's not unique to Malabar or to any place any of us have ever been.
But we live in Malabar.
If you want to see some weird traffic and some very fast traffic that goes this way, on the Palmetto Expressway in South Miami.
That's why I live here.
Yeah, I know, but it's going to happen. But I've been spoken often with Sheriff Ivey personally, and with a couple of the deputies, and they are patrolling. They can't be everywhere all the time, but I'll say I'm on Weber Road almost every day.
Good.
I live there. I don't live on Corey. I don't get on Corey much, so I can't say how often they're over there.
I'm sad that the sheriff's office wasn't represented here tonight. I would have thought that would have added a little bit more weight for him to hear this issue.
Well, we have a contract with them that provides 36 hours of protection within a 24-hour period.
Okay.
I don't know if it's still a written contract, but the original one was that, and I don't think we made it any less.
You know, I think the point is, if we notice any patterns, if there's a repetitive thing, it's like at 3:30 every day or 5:30 every day, you know, then that's something that can be acted.
Well, the 3 times it's happened to me in the past several months, it's always been between noon and 3 in the afternoon.
Okay.
Yep.
The only 2 approaches I can think of that make any sense whatsoever would be mainly to put a paragraph in the newsletter. That's a thought, you know. And number 2, I don't know if it's possible or not, get the use of one of these speed signs that says, you are going 99 miles an hour, and, you know.
Grandpa Carey had one that one of the citizens bought off of eBay and gave to the town.
Oh.
I don't know if there's a source of these or not, like, at some higher level of government, the county, the state, I don't know.
Richard, the town that my sister lives in Georgia is a fairly small town, bigger than this one. But they have several. When I was there last year, I took pictures of them, brought back to Debbie, she and I talked about these. And there's one guy at the, one vendor at the Space Coast League of Cities convention I went to last year. He had a novel setup. His was that radar posting that you're talking about. It also flashed a light, which he said it doesn't do anything, but it makes them think that their picture's been taken.
Excellent.
You know, but these things are costly. The cheapest one's still about $10,000. Yeah. Well, anyway, they are fairly costly. Yeah. But and then again, you're still dealing with people that don't care. You know, it's just Richard, don't ever chase again. It's not worth getting shot at.
I was encouraged by Deputy Cameron not to do that also, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, enough said about that. We're all aware of this issue, and it's an ongoing issue, and maybe someday one of these people will nail it. Okay, the second item that I want to talk about is the number of break-ins that we've had.
Cars.
Again, this is reported on Nextdoor. We've had 3, I think, in the last week, on Gunsel, on Lineberry, and on North Howell. Part of this can be offset if people will just not leave stuff in their cars in the driveway, lock them, not put their guns and wallets and cell phones and things in the car and leave it there for somebody to get. That's low-hanging fruit. So education in that respect is one of the things that we do. Lost my train of thought. Of course, my age, I have to appreciate the quiet.
It'll get worse.
So, I don't know what we can do about that either.
Request
Keep your car
BSC.
locked.
Yeah, common sense dictates here. If you're gonna leave this stuff in the car, you're just asking for some thief to come and get it.
And the sheriff did comment on that, on his last report, he said people lock your cars.
That's the best way to prevent.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and the other thing is put it in the garage, and of course, lots of people use the garage for something other than putting the car in, and that's.
I've never been in my garage.
Yeah. Anyway, I just want to bring these things to your attention, just so you know, we the people out here are concerned about it, and I don't expect the council to do anything about it, but I would appreciate just being aware of it. Okay? Thank you.
And FYI, I did see on Corey Road, I did see a sheriff 2 nights last week as well. In and about the time I saw the thing on Nextdoor about that situation. I was going home, and I typically go home usually between 5 and 6. And on 2 nights, I can't remember which nights it was, but I saw one right on Corey Road off to the west side, and then I saw one on Hall Road watching Corey Road. And that was going home traffic.
Yeah, I saw one.
Well, a couple of these incidents happened in the wee hours. That makes it a little bit more challenging for anybody to patrol. I don't know what we can do about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have no more speakers cards. We'll move on to ordinances or resolution. We have a resolution to appoint Tom Taylor to the Park and Rec Board. Clerk, would you please read by title only?
A resolution of the Town of Malabar, Brevard County, Florida, providing for the appointment of Tom Taylor to the Malabar Parks and Recreation Board as a regular member, providing for the repeal of resolutions or parts of resolutions in conflict herewith, providing for an effective date.
Move to approve. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion? Okay, this is roll call.
Yes.
Okay?
Councilmember Ball,
Aye.
Councilmember Vale,
Aye.
Councilmember Corn,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Ribbit.
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0.
Okay. Go on to miscellaneous, or determination, the accepted portion of Lynn Rose Lane for permitting. Nancy, do you have a background on this?
I'm gonna turn it over to the attorney.
Yeah. Thank you, Lawrence. Keep.
In the package, there's a staff memo from Debbie about a little bit of history and what's going on out in Rose. Excuse me. And a map showing the situation out there right now. And when Debbie was relaying this to me, I just couldn't wrap my head around what the heck happened. This was back in the 90s. So I had to do a lot of digging. And I found the court judgment which created this mess. There was a case back in the 90s where, and I'm going to mispronounce their name, I apologize, it's the Haneys or the Hanneys? Haney sued the town, essentially over the town's requirement to dedicate sufficient right-of-way to meet our width requirements. And I think it's either 50 or 60 feet, but we're pretty sure it's 50 feet. And the platted right-of-way in that area is only 25. So they sued the town saying that the requirement to dedicate the additional right-of-way basically is against the law, it's unconstitutional, taking my property without compensation. And the court agreed to it. And it puts into jeopardy, at least with respect to Linrose, our ability to require any homes desiring a permit, basically now and in the future, from having to have to give up additional right-of-way on the property. I can't find, we have no records in the town of this, of the result of this lawsuit. We know it exists, we found some minutes, but as far as the judgment and what was argued and how it was argued in the court, we have no idea. And we took a bath in that case, especially with respect to the requirement of a sufficient dedication of roadway. We also, back in the 90s, had to pay $46,000 in attorney's fees and costs to the other side. There was an appeal filed, but we dismissed it. Again, I have no idea why. So it brings us to a point now where there's a vacant piece that's the owner's desiring to sell and the buyer's desiring to buy, and they want to know what is our requirement for a road on Linrose. And I think that's parcel 22, Debbie?
21.
21, all right. I think this final judgment, at least with respect to Linrose, establishes the following. We cannot require those parcels on Linrose to dedicate additional right-of-way, okay? We're stuck with the 25-foot. I do not believe the judgment states that we can't at least require a road to be built to certain road standards as far as compaction and height and all that stuff. So, in my opinion, with respect to those properties that are on Linrose right now, they do not have to dedicate additional right-of-way, but they do at least have to build a road. I think we have a 25-foot road standard in the code.
Correct.
So they at least have to do that. That would be my recommendation to the council as far as Linrose is concerned. Now, staff has not dug deeper into this judgment, especially this staff member, concerning what that judgment and how that judgment impacts other situations. There's case law cited, that's from the 90s. Things definitely changed since then, but, you know, I'm not gonna spend the town's money on researching that without the council's approval. So, we're figuring at the staff level, we need to give staff sufficient amount of time to analyze this and see how this judgment may impact the remaining, was it 39 roads or something
Yes.
along those lines, in the town, which are less than 50 feet wide right now. And whether or not we would recommend to the town maybe adjusting the road ordinance, not doing anything. From my perspective, if you read my memo, you know, the courts seem to use this rational nexus, rational basis test. In my opinion, requiring the extra dedication has a rational relationship to what we're trying to accomplish. At the bare minimum, we gotta be able to get emergency services down there. I mean, a 25-foot road, we might be able to get down there. What about people wanting to come out? How do you turn around? You know, you got that impact. Again, I don't know what was argued in the court. I don't know, but apparently whatever it was didn't work. You know, it also gives us sufficient area for drainage. We know drainage is a problem in the town, so, you know, requiring a 50-foot right-of-way doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna pave 50 feet, but it gives us that extra area so we can provide for drainage. And it certainly will accomplish better traffic flow. Just a 25-foot road is kind of tough to.
That's one way.
It essentially is. So these are the things staff wants to look at for the future and possibly hold a workshop later on in the year. But immediately, I think we need to address this Linrose situation and take the position that we won't be requiring the extra dedication, but they at least have to build the road to the 25-foot road stand.
May I address? My understanding or my observation of the years has been a lot of legal decisions are based on precedent of what went before. And that if we were to require another resident on Linrose, a new resident, to build a road to what we want them to do, and if we were to go to court, that decision might probably follow the decision of the early 90s? Is that a likelihood?
What I'm saying is that this particular judgment establishes some type of precedent for Linrose.
But is it for all of the roads in the town?
No.
Or just Linrose?
This is what I'm trying to tell you. I am saying right now it's Linrose. We need to look at that judgment in a broader context to determine what the impact. But I'm not gonna spend your money doing that and until you guys say we need to look at that. I mean, that's an
Without additional research on your part,
I can't give you an
can we
opinion.
still require them to do the road base
Yes.
more than 25 feet?
Yes,
We can
yes.
make that requirement.
Yes, sir.
I had a conversation on this earlier today with a staff member. I didn't know all of the details. I thought it included the building of the road itself. I was gonna say, if they don't put the road in with a good, strong base and so forth, then we got nothing to service, and we should say, no, we won't. It's your driveway. You take care of it yourself.
Correct.
And I don't think we want to do that. We've got a couple of roads like that I'm uncomfortable with now in my district. If we've got a road and it's got a name and people have homes on that road, we need to take care of it and make it safe, not only for those people, but for emergency services to get to them. So can we do that in a 25-foot width? Yeah. If we can still require them to build a suitable road base.
And again, let's just talk about Linrose. That's what the proposal is. you know, build that 25-foot road in that 20-foot right of way to our 25-foot road standards. And there's, in one of the sections in the.
Party to this lawsuit, did he even put a road base in? He, she,
No,
whatever?
I think we were, again, we were forced to accept a substandard road. I can't tell you why, but all I know is that at least this case focuses on the dedication requirement, and it didn't sufficiently address, in my opinion, the road base requirement. You know, because we're stuck with a box of rocks out there on that first 528 feet or 530 feet. That's what we were required to accept, which not even built to a standard. Okay, it's, I don't know, for all I know, that path may not even be in the right of way because there's an additional 30-foot private easement. Is that to the east, Debbie?
To the east.
Yeah, that runs up those lots.
One, two,
that-
three,
That's not
four
ours.
lots,
It's
four.
not ours at all. So essentially, you know, you can look at that and say that's their driveway, yes. Okay, but when we get back to lot 21, which is on now the west side, they don't have the benefit of that easement. They just have this 25-foot right-of-way, and, you know, they want to know what they need to do, basically, to build a house out there. And, you know, in all fairness, I don't believe it's fair to require them to dedicate roadway when nobody else has to. And you're gonna have this type of road going up there. Best thing we can do is, based on that judgment, to say, all right, we'll keep it within the 25 feet, build that road base to our 25-foot road standard, and, you know, it should be good to go.
People could pass him, but
Yeah, but not with a fire truck out there. That's my biggest concern.
what I'm saying, there's got to be ways to get emergency vehicles.
Well, for clarification, Mr. Attorney, you want to state 400 feet, improve 400 feet?
Yeah, I don't know how the length of that road is, that part.
Current accepted in,
It's from, where is it, Debbie? Where is it?
currently accepted to this point.
Yeah, they gotta go from that point
So
forward.
if this person is required to improve it, they would be required to improve 400 feet of 25-foot
Yeah.
wide.
Right, it wouldn't make any
Right
sense
of way.
to skip that 200 feet then. So, you know, and that's what we would require if this was all done the right way and they wanted to build. We would require the whole right of way to be improved, and then we'd go into the road improvement ordinance and the buyback and the repayment part, but we just didn't do that. And the court said that not only didn't you do that, you can't require them to dedicate the width. Again, I don't know if you will.
Okay, so it's pretty clear what we have to do going forward on Lindrose Lane in terms of
Yes.
granting people. So again, the question you brought up was, you know, are we willing to look at this in a more general context? And I think this is something that we should probably anticipate rather than come up and bite us in the behind when we're not thinking about it.
And it will.
And it will, right?
Yes. It will.
I live on a 25-foot road, and the people building next to me now will probably build past me at some point. That's gonna be the same issue.
Right, right. And again, you know, moving forward, obviously we have moved beyond a certain time period, you know, where things may have been done a little bit loosely, and we've tightened the screws a little bit, so we know going forward, we have to apply our stuff in a uniform, consistent fashion.
Okay, so if we were to ask you to research this and give us the, you know, essentially the rules of thumb for the whole town in these types of situations, are we talking about, do you have a rough estimate of hours / dollars? I mean, is it a $5,000 job?
Yeah,
Is it a $15,000 job?
it's.
Good question.
No, that's a good question. You're under 5. You're under 5. Yeah, and you know, staff also, we're gonna have to discuss, you know, do we wanna make recommendations to you about changing the road ordinance? We're going to have to probably beef it up a little bit, you know. fix some loose ends, so that's all gonna be part of it. The workshop, I'm looking at doing that, you know, it'll, you know, have to go back, yeah, to the other, to, you know, maybe P and Z, in fact, actually, this is not a P and Z one, this is an Article 3, right?
This is in the
So,
front half.
we have, you know, a couple of meetings, at least 3 meetings here, at least. So, yeah, I think you're under 5. You'll be all right.
Okay, so just to be clear, if we mandate, well, we are going to say that they need to improve the 400 feet.
Yes.
Using the 25-foot road.
Correct.
That would, and right now we have the reimbursement program.
Right.
Yes.
Apply to that.
That would still apply.
So,
Yes.
the lot, the 200-foot lot before that would be on the hook to pay them, reimburse them for the portion of road along that, as would the 2 lots on the east side.
Should they use that 25
Should
foot?
they use that
Yes,
road, they would be on the hook to pay their share per foot
definitely.
back to whoever invested the money to.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been through a lot of rural communities in my travels around the United States. And it seems that it's not unusual to go into a rural community and have a road that 2 people can't pass on. But it's an improved road, sometimes even a paved road, that the locals know that, okay, somebody's coming down the road, I gotta pull over on this side for them to come back. I can think of a paved road in the Keys that 2 vehicles can't pass on. And it's a fairly long road, probably a mile long. So, I don't know where we're going on this, and we need to think about
And
that.
that's one of the things that I'm saying when we have a workshop, you know, you might want to consider taking a look at that requirement to maybe reduce it. Because right now, we're requiring 50-foot right-of-ways at a minimum, sometimes it's 60-foot in subdivisions, correct?
Other way around.
Okay, I'm sorry.
60 feet dirt roads and
Okay,
50
50-foot.
foot.
And subdivisions, that's an easy one, we just leave that one alone. It's these areas that are not in the platted subdivision, like, you know, the ones we have around. And, you know, 60 foot's pretty wide, okay, for something like this maybe. So, it's time to look at it, okay? Because I'm sure over the years, Debbie gets the questions all the time about this darn thing. And, you know, she's gotta be the one that responds.
Are we getting, now this, going back to this lawsuit, okay, this property owner, what I'm curious about is how likely are we to run into a situation like that again? Because, and my point is, I have some property that fronts on Appleby Lane that's not improved. It's just there, okay? And my survey showed either easement or right-of-way depicted there, you know, so, I mean, actually, I've got like 3 acres, but once those things are taken out, it's like 2.67 acres. Okay, and I just assumed that everybody's property had that. So, was it a case where this person did not have that easement or right-of-way already depicted, and we were saying we wanted it?
No, there's 25-foot depicted, it's the old Florida Indian River Land Company plat.
Yeah.
And they basically platted 25-foot right-of-ways, and I think on section lines they made them 40 feet.
40 feet.
Right, so that 25-footer was there. We said, okay, and doing the best I can recreate the facts here, we're saying, we need you to dedicate additional right-of-way now for us to meet our 60-foot requirement. And the answer was not only no to him, and he sued us, saying it was an illegal taking of property. I believe there's a rational basis to require that. I mean, emergency services is pretty, but whether it's 60 feet, 50 or 40, I mean, we need to make that decision. And
Well, all those things you depicted were things of value, that we were given that resident in exchange for the right of way.
Exactly.
And so it wasn't like we were just taking property. That's not the way the court saw it.
I don't know, right, we don't know what was argued.
And you could, you know, anybody would be more than happy to argue one way or the other whether that value is realized or
Yes.
not, you know, so.
Well, the only way we could have taken it is by paying for it with right of eminent domain, then this
Right.
would not have happened.
That is correct, and that's a lot of money.
But if we were to do that, it would make sense to do it on the other side where the property is not dedicated, dedicated, meaning we want to be completely fair.
No, yeah, I agree. So, I mean, again, moving forward, we will have, I think, a better discussion after staff gets the opportunity to sit down and put its collective heads together and come up with something. But moving forward on Monroe's, I think this is the answer.
I agree with what you were saying about having a workshop and look at more in detail. Because what we're gonna have to do is to develop classifications of roads. Rivet Lane is not Malabar Road, or Corey, or even Marie Street. So the requirements for Rivet Lane, which goes where? What's at the end of it? Nothing.
My house, yeah.
Yeah. We have to set classifications of roads, because I can't see requiring Rivet Lane to have the same width, the same everything that Corey Road's got. And that would be kind of ridiculous to make you living on a duplicate of Corey Road, or anybody else. So I think we need to set classifications and set reasonable limitations on how many feet from the center line, the established center line of the road. And could be 20 feet, could be 30 feet, could be 15 feet from the center line towards your property, both ways. And if we establish it that way with the types of roads, and some of them can change. Smith Lane, your road is going more than it used to. So it has changed, but most of the roads, like, I use Rivet as an example because, Mr. River, you brought that up. At one time, Smith Lane was probably similar to what Rivet is now. But I can't see them all changing right away. And if they do, then we can look down the road using the eminent domain potential. But for now, let's try to be fair to everybody.
That's what we're trying to do. When I was constructing my road, I was asked to give it 5 feet. I gave it 5 feet. And that was in an effort to get a 60-foot right of way because we had 50. They asked for 5 on each side. I don't know who else. There's been a lot of construction on Smith Lane. I don't know who else gave it up, but about everybody gave it up, so we have our 60 feet now. All it does is take that, kind of gives you a little breathing room on the maintenance side. Now, regarding the 25-foot roads, I am a member of the fire department, and we do respond to calls. When you have a structure fire or something where you have to have an engine and a tanker, and that tanker has to leave to go get more water, you can't do it. You know, so, and those are 2 very heavy pieces of equipment. You can't, in a pickup truck or a car, just like on the Ford, I drive a dually. I'll run my one tire, I can't only run over the ditch for the other car to pass. You cannot do that with a fire engine or tanker. You'll be in that ditch. So there is a safety standard that we need to try and apply realistically. It's not that the fire can't be fought or the emergency can't be taken care of, but it's going to make it a lot more difficult to provide that safety service.
Well, like Carl said, on the lane where we've already established a 25-foot, we're pretty much stuck.
Where is it? We're stuck with it.
Yeah, we normally don't recognize the audience, but if you want to come up to the podium and state your name and address.
I'll go there real fast. Just for clarification purposes. My name is Richard Woodland. I'm a realtor. I represent the seller on Windrose. And if you don't know, there is actually a house at the end of Windrose. There has been for many years. Someone lives there already. She utilizes that road every day in and out. From reading and doing my research, it looks like 30 feet of road right-of-way was given to the people on the east side of the road at some point in some of the more historical data, if you can pull it. I did read the lawsuit. We're just looking for clarification on if the 25-foot road, or right-of-way, if you will. Who's to pay for it? Who's to have it engineered? Who can recoup the monies from the road being built? There's 2 more lots on the east side, and there is a woman at the end of the road that will, her property will be increased in value. This property was sold at a higher rate of value years ago with the expectation of that road being buildable. For them to say now it has to be improved, the current owner has lost quite a bit of money due to that. So we're trying to get clarification on what needs to be done, who will engineer it, and where to go from here.
Yeah.
Real quick, I built a road in Valkyria before where I hired the engineer, and you kind of jump through some hoops going through the county and here and there, as where if the city were to engineer it to their specifications. Just trying to get some clarification for the seller and the potential buyer. They're both here tonight.
We have the road package.
Right.
Okay, and it lists about 6 different engineers. So the applicant can choose, call, get prices, but they choose the engineer that will design it to our standards. And as the attorney said, there is a exhibit B6, which is building a dirt road within a 25-foot right-of-way. And we refer to it as the country lane. So as long as those requirements are met, and then the package is brought in, our engineer reviews it. If it's sufficient, then it'll be stamped off, a permit will be issued, the road will be improved, the engineer will make a recommendation to council to accept 400 feet of improved road, a cost of all the costs that the applicant has expended during this process. Engineering, surveying, testing, soil boring, all of those costs are legitimate costs that go to the total. Council approves the 400-foot improvement and verifies the cost of that improvement. And that's how we come up with the per linear foot for the payback.
Okay.
So we handle the admin of the payback, and all the money would go to the road builder or whoever their successor is.
Okay. So in order to build, you're saying that they have to come the full length from the beginning of this property line past their property line?
No, only to the furthest point of parcel 21.
400 feet.
They don't have to do anything in front of parcel 22.
I know, but they're going to have to go to the property line here.
Yes,
Correct.
That is correct.
that's the way our code
And
says.
that's all documented in our road package.
Right.
Okay.
And I can attest the system works. I built 644 feet, and I've probably gotten 80% of my money back, with the exception of mine, because I paid my share as well.
Okay.
And I think
Just want
all-
clarification so we know what we're going to talk about later.
The system works.
And unfortunately, the house to the north, that 22,
Yes.
they're not gonna have to contribute anything. Okay, it's only those who come in for a later permit to build a house
Right.
on east or west side will have to be part of the payback.
Okay. Anything else? We haven't addressed whether we're willing to bear the cost of investigating this further. So maybe as we get into our workshops on the future road actions, we're going to have to look at that.
It needs to be looked at. It does.
But even before that, we need to know some of the things that would help us with the decision.
Correct. And you know, that's at least authorized me to analyze the ruling and how it impacts the other roads. I mean,
We're talking a handful of hours.
yes, sir, yes, sir, okay.
Do we have consensus that makes sense to pursue?
I'm okay with that.
All right, we have consensus.
All right, thank you.
All right. Okay, Carl, there's one more item before you take off.
Oh, wait, I need probably a motion and a second. I mean, I've got the
Second.
motion, but to improve to require parcel 21 to improve the 400
Okay.
feet.
All right, I don't think
I
the
mean,
motion.
we kind of talked all around it, but
Yes, Do we have
Yeah.
a motion?
I'll make a motion.
To improve the 400 feet
Report.
using the 25-foot road improvement standard, and the 3 parcels that would benefit would have to do the
I'll
page.
make that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
No, I think we talked just-
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It passes 5-0. All right, now, moving on to the discussion items, signage regulations.
I can shortcut maybe most of that discussion from my perspective. I mean, 99.9% of what P and Z came back with, I'm good. But, most of that other is policy decision from the league perspective as far as content and all that stuff. I'm fine, I'm good with it. Just one little hiccup, and it's in the definition of outdoor display. Go down there. But, when I tried to look at my color copy, purple wasn't purple, purple was blue. Keep going down. No.
Yeah.
Well, I even had staff trying to figure it out. Keep going down. Right. It's.
What page?
No,
Okay, there it is.
Page 4, all right. That little blue part there, or actually that is purple. It's supposed to be purple, I think. But it says, with the intent of advertising, demonstrating, or identifying the nature of business or articles for sale. In a technical sense, that makes you look at the content of what's being said, and,
So you're recommending we just strike that last part?
if we want to be fully compliant with the Supreme Court case about not regulating signs on content, yes. Okay, that's the only issue I have.
And I think it's safe to say that it would be a good thing to be in compliance with Supreme Court decisions.
Well, I think so, but, I don't know what, E and Z might have to say about that. And I even think they recognize, if you go up to the key, the color coding key, they said something that, where the purple is, then go down, they said, usually do, most of these will end up being removed by the attorney's inspections. They recognize it, but I didn't, that was the only one that just gave me a little tickle.
Well, we have P and Z here.
So you can't tell them what to say or do with their sign?
You can't regulate the sign based on what it says over there.
Yes.
Okay.
So
That's
it's like,
Only by the size and nature of the sign.
Basically, well, the
Whether it's a
size.
big board or
loca-
banner.
The size, location, the type.
And if that's flirting with the Supreme Court case, then I think I'm in favor of taking that up.
That's it, that's all I had. The rest of the changes, that's policy decision on what you guys want to do. Yes, they simplified this, there's no doubt, okay? When I did my revisions and stuff, I just looked at the entire picture, everything. And this is what I expected them to do, this is what you tasked them to do, simplify it, they did. And I'm okay with everything but that little clear sense. That blue one right there.
okay.
Oh.
Purple. All right, any other council members have comments on the other content?
I've said this before, that one of the things we need to do in town, and has been said before that we want to do, that's to encourage commercial growth, and particularly on certain corridors and so forth. Any sign ordinance has got to be a keep it simple, stupid. Like when I came back here in '88, I put a sign up where I had an office over at Kirby. Sure. And sign guy came by there, and he come out with a lot of fancy words, and I, wait. It was Sam Edwards, I don't think you know. Say it in English, say it in English. What do you mean that I gotta do? And he did, and I did, and paid him $25. That was the fee per year. But if you got a businessman coming in, let's make it easy for him to set up his business. Not where his business is gonna be in conflict with what's for the good of the town. But let's not make it such a harassment that he'll listen, or she, or whatever it is. But let's make it user-friendly. And user-understandably friendly.
Okay. Anyone else?
And I think it's accomplished.
Well, I do remember one topic that was often mentioned about the animated signs and the frequency of how often the animation change. I don't see, or I guess I overlooked it because I don't see anything specific in here. Because I see the animated, spectacular, intensely lighted sign. There was mention of anywhere from 4 seconds to 30 seconds change intervals. I guess other municipalities have a 4-second change interval. And there was mention in the past, and that's when I was out there, that somebody thought it should be 30-second for safety reasons. And I don't agree with that.
I haven't seen any issue since they're saying.
Exactly. And I come down that road quite often, and I can honestly say I've never been distracted by that stuff.
You're right, I think Willie offered that came up in front of council, the frequency, and he said, well, you guys okay with 30 seconds, and that was, and I think that you showed me that. So we were okay with 30 seconds. Now, I haven't timed it, but.
Again, but Brian's point is, I don't,
So
he
you
doesn't see
you're
it.
saying
I
you
don't see
don't-
anything in there that
Okay,
says
we-
4
that's a good-
seconds,
That's a
30
good point, I
seconds,
thought,
anything like
so-
that.
you like the.
And I don't know that we actually need it.
All right,
Well, if we don't have it, we can't regulate it.
Yeah.
In other words, we can't go after the fact and then tell somebody, oh, well, we want your sign to flash only X number of seconds. Either needs to be in here, or we let it be streaming video.
Right.
But that's a choice if it's not in here.
How many of us are distracted by flashing signs? I'm not.
I kind of get the feeling that 4 seconds is kind of at least the norm around us.
A refresh rate of 4.
Refresh rate of 4 seconds. So I don't know if that's even need to be in there.
I think you're right, we need to, if we agree on something about.
I think more than anything, it should say no streaming video. Because streaming video could take somebody's idea and you're watching it to see what's happening. If it's breaking and the sign's refreshing, that's not so much, but if it's streaming video, I think that's something we'd want to.
Well, yeah, but if we do limit it to 4 seconds.
Yeah, you've also done that.
You have done it.
All right, so does council want to recommend, you want a 5 second or 10 seconds?
I think
I have no idea.
4 is,
Well, again, there's a lot of people on P and Z that spend a lot of time
And I'll throw,
looking and arguing.
but I mean, give us some guidance, we'll discuss it.
But that is a good point.
I-
Because we went round and round with that for, 30 minutes one evening.
Right, and he did say that at the the meeting, so it was in the minutes, but there was no developers agreement, there was nothing that was, committed him to that. It was simply what he said at the meeting.
In my drive home last night, I went through a couple of sections where there were signs that FDOT puts up, and it's a 2-part, caution, blah, blah, and then the Y in the next one. Why we got a caution that? I would get distracted a little bit to see what the reasoning is on the next sign as it turns over. And that's gonna be, 8 or 9 seconds, it seems like, but I've never timed it. What does FDOT use for their standard
I knew
on their message,
there was
information signs?
some intention on that before, so I think it needs to be put in there.
Well, I will bring up that discussion, we'll look at 4 to 30 seconds and see what the consensus is. But you definitely don't want any faster than 4 seconds.
And again, that seems to be the standard. And I don't know if anybody has
You've seen that?
reached out. I think Palm Bay is,
Palm Bay and Melbourne both
are
have that.
both 4.
Right, yeah.
And they obviously, and a lot of times when we come up with stuff, no, we're not like Palm Bay, no, we're not like Melbourne. But when you're looking at standards and all the research they've done to
It's a good place
support their
to start.
decisions,
Okay.
a lot of times it's
Hopefully there's some science behind that 4 seconds that we came up with, yes.
But again, Matt, does your contact with FDOT, do they have a standard for the wording?
I'm sure they do.
All right, so there's two issues, you know,
Yes.
striking that,
Yeah.
that one sentence or
That
half
sentence and the refresh rate, I've got those two marked down.
And streaming video is what,
Well, again, if we have a refresh
Well,
rate,
I
then
think if we make it 4, then that, I agree. If we make it to a 4-second thing, we've killed streaming video.
Right.
Yes.
Because you have to have a refresh rate, you can't stream video and not have a refresh rate.
Subject to the video.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, looks like this is pretty darn close.
They're very good, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, and at this point, Carl?
Alrighty then.
Good evening. Okay, our next discussion item is the future land use RLC designation on Malabar Road, the depth of the RLC. Brian, is this yours?
no, but I do need a soapbox for a little while. I stood on my soapbox at the podium, and I'll run with it.
I'll let you go.
I think splitting the parcel, the zoning, is discouraging commercial growth along the little bit of corridor space that we have to be developed. As it is right now, if we stay with 1320, there's about, when you take away the back portion and the front portion and the setbacks, you have about 800 feet to build. If we enforce the 660, it's going to give you about 300 foot build on the same parcel, which 300 feet for any substantial institutional commercial structure like MEMA, like Health First, anything like that. I think there would be a kind of meet in the middle by making a significant buffer. You know, you mandate it, either
Well, we
mandate
have
it.
that already, right?
There's, right now it's 100 feet, and if that doesn't seem to be enough, but it's 100, the way it reads, and I got a copy of it, it's 100 feet of no buildings. That doesn't mean you can't have pavement, asphalt.
Well, there is a vegetative buffer, I didn't print out the whole thing.
I think beams that abuts, we could do potentially an overlay on these 6 parcels. And if we're, and I am concerned about the impact on the adjacent residents, we could make and I'm just picking numbers here, we could make a 75-foot, no touch. Just leave it as it lays right now. And then you can make another 75 feet of drainage, green space, no pavement. And that would give you 150 feet behind the facility to buffer you from the adjacent residential properties. And I think that would be, because in the end, even if we do stay with this and 660 gets developed into commercial, there's going to be a residential abutting it anyway. Now, they would know that coming in, unlike the people, that is the difference again. But I think 150 feet of green space, 75 feet of untouched, natural, as it lays right now, and then 75 feet of green space and more drainage, no pavement. And that would provide an adequate buffer from the adjacent
That's
property.
300 feet
No, 150.
on both sides of the property.
On
Yeah, I think you're just talking about our
Abutting
We're
R
talking
65.
this size and this
No,
side.
abutting R 65.
It'll only be the south side.
Okay,
So,
it would
The
just be the
south
back,
side,
just
and
the back of the property.
Yeah, and potentially, in some cases, potentially the east or west side of it, contingent on where the property is located as well.
Debbie mentioned a moment ago that there is a vegetation buffer requirement.
And-
How big is that, do you remember?
It depends on what it's abutting, if it's industrial,
And that's what-
commercial, institutional.
That's what I'm saying, for these 6 parcels, if there is not much concern with it, and I fully agree, there needs to be a heightened level of concern. We can do the overlay.
I don't even think we need to do an overlay, I think we can just do it in our ordinance.
Yeah.
I don't wanna go down the street to these overlays at this time, all of a sudden, now we're
So
gonna be paying tons of money to create overlays.
It's
Then we ought to do it.
And we can use what we currently have, or expand on what we currently have.
But as I understand it, this property at this point is zoned just one way.
It's RR65 now.
Right, and then we're gonna
Split it in half.
and that, to me, that's just, that's not right. Not for the person that owns this property, to have to deal with it in two different ways.
And you're
Well,
potentially
not only the
devaluing.
owner,
Yeah,
for somebody coming in to build something.
yeah.
And now, you know, my property's long and narrow and deep, and, you know, I would hate to have the back half of my property be a different zoning than the front half of my
And
property.
then the intent of P and Z was to follow the property lines was zoned, because it was just a straight line. Pick this number, go back wherever it lands, and P and Z started following all the property lines realistically that way. You
Some
weren't
of them-
cutting anything in half.
Yeah.
I'm using, in my mind right now, trying to think of an example, the one that comes to mind is really on Hirsch's property, which goes back over 1,300 feet.
13, 20 feet.
And the property's on at least one side of her doesn't go back that far. But if we,
You have a map.
if we follow the property lines, and I've changed my mind a couple times on this thing, I'm to a point now where I would say, let's stay with property lines. With the zoning, not cut a person's property in half, or in any percentage. Go with the property lines and make some requirement that shows consideration for the next property owner,
Residential.
dependent on whether there are residents or a different kind of business or what, and make the buffer requirement fit that mold. You'd have a different buffer requirement, if it was your house right behind there, or somebody's house, or if it was another type of a business or warehouse, there would be a difference. We need to be flexible enough to take those things into consideration.
Unfortunately, as the chair, I can't participate. in the
Well, I know what you're feeling, you brought this up to begin with, the abutment to RR65.
I can, share a couple of facts. I was contacted by the property owners that are adjacent to the property that considering being rezoned. They were adamant against it. We should also take into account that currently the whole property is RR65. Rezoning some of it commercial would increase the value of some. Okay? Doing nothing is keeping the land at its minimum value. Again, I would love to argue this, but
I don't even know what the zoning of my example, is it an R65?
the
example.
the example we're talking about here is currently RR65.
I know that Councilman Dale brought up a few meetings ago that the RLC was basically intended for small parcels. Smaller parcels than some of these big ones we've got along there. I don't know what we can do about that because we can't tell people they gotta split their property. That's not our business.
And two of the property owners request that we did not.
I got calls.
Well, again, we are not saying we're splitting property, we're saying we're changing the zoning on part of it, not all of it. That is the way the current land use plan is, that's what it says. That's not the same as splitting property.
Are we acting on this tonight?
No, this is a
Well,
discussion.
yeah, we just kind of like direction to staff, so if you guys want to ponder it and bring it back for discussion again, we need to know at staff, so we know how to draw the map when we come
Which
back
y'all
to the
want
final.
to
approval.
Yeah, that's a fair question.
Yeah, and,
Well,
parcels 1, 2, and 3 are across the street from the hospital.